Welcome back and welcome back on board the PSVR2 hype train. Today we're taking a look at a few games that would really solidify the lineup of launch titles or post-launch titles for this headset. Now the launch lineup for PSVR2 is no meager thing. It's actually really solid and it's far better in terms of quality and the amount of games, at least for me, than the PS5's actual launch. However, there are still a few titles that are keeping a few people from investing in this headset until they are confirmed and announced. So let's get into 5 that I think are very important and should be ported over to the PSVR2 headset after launch, because to be honest, full launch might be a little bit too late now, so let's get straight into it. Let's start with the obvious ones first, and the number one pick for me to start off with is Half-Life Alyx. The first game that really showed me the potential of AAA VR. Valve's Half-Life title in VR is pretty much a flawless masterpiece. In terms of visuals, gameplay, immersion, sound design, everything's there, and if this gets ported to PSVR2, I can see a lot of people hopping on to this headset to give it a try. The haptics, the foveated rendering, the headset features, all of these could allow for the most crisp and most immersive version of Half-Life Alyx that we have ever seen. Of course, this is all up for debate whether or not this game will actually happen, because it all depends on the communication between Valve and Sony, but partnership between them is not unheard of, so there is a chance of it happening. We had a lot of rumours back in last year about Half-Life Alyx being a launch title. That has not happened yet, and I can't really see that happening within the next month when PSVR2 launches. But who knows, after the launch maybe we will get Half-Life Alyx as a title, and I really hope we do, because this one deserves to be experienced on the best quality headset possible and experienced by the most amount of players, because it really is a VR work of art. Next is also quite an obvious and popular choice, and this is Boneworks or BoneLab. Now personally, if we're not going to get mod support for either of these titles when they're ported over, or if they're ported over, I would happily choose Boneworks over BoneLab in terms of its vanilla content. Boneworks has a more cohesive campaign, and while I love BoneLab, most of the enjoyment I get out of it post completing the campaign, which really doesn't take that long, is through mods. The game is brilliant with mods and it will keep expanding and being fun to play, just like Gmod is for me with its add-ons. However, in vanilla, even though the systems that make the game work, the gameplay itself, and even replaying the actual campaign might be really fun and solid, I think that Boneworks would serve as a better title for standalone. However, if they could get mod support working, I would happily have both titles, or BoneLab considering it's the latest Stress Level 0 title, but this is also a game that deserves to be experienced by the most amount of people. Despite my criticisms of it in my main BoneLab video and review, this game truly blew me away at points, and all of the issues I had with it really have been fixed now, so if the current game got ported to PSVR2, it would be amazing for players to try out. Next up, we have Phasmophobia. This is a game that I wish came to console anyway in flat screen, and this could be a good hybrid game for PSVR2. The gameplay loop of going into spooky mansions and locations and hunting down ghosts with your friends, either on flat screen or in VR, makes this one a perfect, ideal title for PSVR2 and PS5. For friend groups that have those who own the headset and those who don't, they can all play together in this immersive and spooky experience with proximity voice chat, and perhaps this game could even utilize eye tracking to keep the ghosts out of your vision at some point, or to move objects that the game knows you're not directly looking at. Lots of opportunities with this one, even for the kill animations. When you see the ghost's hands close around your eyes, the headset haptics could be going off at that point. There are just so many possibilities for Phasmophobia, and I think it deserves to have a port, but I just don't know the feasibility of this one or whether it will even happen. Penultimately, we have Into the Radius. This is a game that has been called Stalker in VR, and you can probably see why. Big open wastelands with anomalies to shoot at, scavenging, surviving, having a home-based setup where you can store all your gear and take missions. This one is a post-apocalyptic, but somewhat beautiful game that is immersive, realistic, and very intense at points. In fact, this is one of the games on the list that I've held off from playing because I am hoping it comes to PSVR2 and I want to experience it in the most immersive way possible for the first time. Into the Radius has already been ported to Quest 2 and the control schemes aren't too different between Quest 2 and PSVR2, so in terms of that it could be possible, but it just depends whether the smaller team of devs is willing to port their game for a second time or whether or not they just prefer to expand and iterate and update the game they already have in place on PC. It's all up to them, but I do hope it does get ported to PSVR2 because it's a game that I'd really love to see. And finally, we have a game that I was begging for on PSVR, but deep down I knew would never happen due to technical limitations, and this is The Forest, or this year's Sons of the Forest. The Forest and Sons of the Forest are immersive survival games that you can play co-op with your friends, where you survive cannibal attacks, explore a giant island, craft and build walls, houses, traps, treehouses, boats, and all sorts, and ultimately just have a very immersive and fun experience surviving with your friends. This one can be played flat and in VR, and I can just imagine The Forest being an incredible hybrid game to play with friends in and out of the headset at the same time. Although I would love The Forest and the Sons of the Forest to be ported to the PSVR2 headset, I don't think there are any plans for the Sons of the Forest to even be ported to PC VR, so I can't really see it happening on Sony's new headset. However, it can't stop a man from dreaming, and I do really wish this one happens one day. I don't think the dev team for these games are that big, and Night Studios seem to be very committed to just developing Sons of the Forest, and that is fair enough. So there's a very low chance of us ever seeing a port of this game for PSVR2. So anyway, that is my list of feasible and not so feasible PSVR2 ports that could or could not happen. Let me know what you think of this list in the comments below, and let me know if there are any games that you think should be on the list that aren't. I'm always looking for new PC VR games to try out, so give me a comment down below and let me know what you think. But the point of this video was kind of to bring to light the fact that what's going to carry this generation of VR and gaming in general is innovation and polish. A lot of the games on this list are run by indie devs who are trying to push the boundary in a certain sector and not trying to cover every single genre in one go and do what a lot of AAA studios do. These guys are focusing on one thing and nailing it. For example, Into the Radius is focusing on that gritty, survival, horror experience, while Phasmophobia is focusing on a fun but scary time with friends that can be played in co-op. These games are going for very different niches and they're doing it perfectly, and these are the type of games that we need on PSVR 2. And the more hybrid games, the better. But these decisions are all up to the developers in the end. If they don't see a market that's feasible to sell on with PSVR 2, they just won't port their game. If it's not financially viable, there's no point in them doing it. But I hope that this console and headset has a big enough install player base for basically every PC VR and Quest 2 VR dev to port their game over to the console so everybody can enjoy it. So that just about does it for this video on my top 5 games that I'd love a port to PSVR 2 on, and my rambling thoughts about ports in general and how many we're going to get and how feasible it all is. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.